Hi everybody, Rad Mom here. Welcome back to the channel where it's a new year and Dave Chappelle is at it again. We talked about Dave Chappelle a couple of years ago on the channel. It's been a long time, but I think it's really interesting that he's sort of becoming a societal scapegoat, and I think the whole thing demonstrates exactly how all of us are being made to work against each other and against our own interests in general in modern society. We have Alori as a guide today.
And I know some people might get annoyed at me talking about this, but I am a woman. As I've said in almost every other video, I'm going to call out when representation is done poorly. I don't want people walking on eggshells around me, and I don't want people to think that I'm one of those people who think you should put down men to make me feel better, because that would not make me feel better.
Because I would rather engage with the, another woman's content than any of the many men who are talking about this insanity. And we have Jeffrey Marsh in the role that he has cast himself as the spokesperson for the trans ideologues of the world.
It is extremely unpleasant with everything that folks like us go through, especially Black trans women, to then be made fun of on top of that.
Alori is a channel that does mainly media criticism. I thought that she was a bit younger than I was until I watched her Doctor Who video, and then I'm like, no, I think she might be about the same age as me, because we feel pretty much the same about Doctor Who. I thought that she had some very strong points and some really good ideas, and was kind of one of these trains of thought that sort of circles, something big and never really quite arrives there. And so I took her video and reordered it entirely. Well, because I want to add to the points that she has made, to highlight what I think are some of the bigger patterns going on here.
Dave Chappelle's humor, which includes trans and disabled people, is not a form of targeting, but rather a tool for normalization and inclusion, and how misinterpretation can actually be harmful. And the headlines that are propagating that he's specifically targeting these people is actually misinterpreting comedy, and it can actually be harmful.
Okay, these headlines are actually kind of shocking. The worst one was Variety. Dave Chappelle's obsession with mocking trans people continues in new Netflix special, The Dreamer, : I love punching down. Which is an extremely misleading headline to quote just that one thing, as if he said that seriously, like, I just love punching down. This is so much fun to me. Like, that's what he said. That's not what he said. It says that, it quotes him at some length in this very article. I'm tired of talking about them, meaning trans people. And you want to know why I'm tired of talking about them? Because these people acted like I needed them to be funny. Well, that's ridiculous. I don't need you. I got a whole new angle coming. You guys will never see this shit coming. I ain't doing trans jokes no more. He then said he was going to transition to joking about handicapped people instead because they're not as organized as the gays, and I love punching down. That's a joke. That's called a joke. From a comedian. This is big brain shit, I know. Apparently William Earl over at Variety magazine is having a little trouble keeping up. And a couple of these other articles, the headlines are just ridiculous. He's obsessed with trans people. But this right here, the headline, this is yellow journalism. This is directly misrepresenting what the fuck it was Chappelle said, just taking it straight out of context, as if he were not being facetious. I'm sort of shocked. I know it's only Variety magazine. The New York Times wasn't a whole lot better. Dave Chappelle assumes we're already offended in his new Netflix special. The Dreamer predictably includes trans and disabled jokes, but punches down in other ways too. Chappelle is part of a comedy elite that Gary Gulman pokes at. I don't know who Gary Gulman is. I thought perhaps he was the person who wrote the article. But no, this is by someone called Jason Zinneman writing for the New York Times, just basically implying that Chappelle is a fogey. He's an old man, and so he just doesn't get it. Which, I've actually always kind of thought Dave Chappelle was just trying to make himself laugh. He does stuff that he thinks is funny. Which, how the fuck else do you write comedy, really?
Trans jokes aren't funny. Let me tell you why.
It is very clear and undeniable that when you're not allowed to mock or criticize something, or make fun of something,
It's immoral.
It's usually something that either is in or seeking to have total power.
Jeffrey Marsh is in full pearl-clutching mode here, okay? Not that I've ever seen that guy really do much else, other than try to purr at children. But censorship is always harmful. Censorship is always a tool of control.
The more of us you make fun of, the more society finds us dismissible.
It's also a common trait of narcissism.
That's right, because a narcissist is someone who wants total power and control. Which, you know, they are agents of chaos. They are out for number one, right? They don't care about you or the social contract or your feelings, and they don't consider that.
The more of us die.
This behavior is bizarre and screams low self-esteem and high narcissism, as it implies expecting the entire world to conform to your preferences. Citizens residing in countries with authoritarian governance often face police visits, micromanagement, or censorship when expressing criticism about the government. A popular example of this is when the Chinese government blocked images and mentions of Winnie the Pooh on social media because internet users had used the character and compared him to CCP General Xi Jinping by simply stating in jest how the two look similar.
I had forgotten all about this. I think this is a really interesting example of exactly how authoritarianism is just like personal narcissism enshrined in law. Like, they obviously offended this guy and upset him by comparing him to Winnie the Pooh. So he nipped that shit in the bud. Because he has the power of the state behind him and the ability to do that. Most of these people don't have that.
The situation is kind of similar to the one where the Fine Brothers YouTubers, who made a living out of reacting to things or getting people to react to certain videos, then had the nerve to try and make it so nobody else was able to react to anything. Or the Fresh and Fit YouTubers copyright striking everyone for criticizing them when they do exactly the same thing to many people and make a living off of it, while also using their content as well.
And again, I reordered her video quite a bit, but that is really similar, isn't it? Main character syndrome is dictator behavior. What we're brewing here is like a world of competing dictators, which is a world of chaos.
If the trend of finding everything offensive persists, the boundaries of acceptability in comedy will continually recede until nothing remains immune to humor.
And I think that we could say this for anything. If the Overton window continues to shift, and shrink, then eventually the range of topics which will be acceptable conversation will become very limited. There are definitely historical examples of that happening. Censorship is always a tool of control, whether on a mass scale or on an individual one.
Dave Chappelle has made fun of black people and white people and basically everybody under the sun.
That's right. And that's one of the things that's most disingenuous about all of this coverage, is that apparently people forget who the fuck Dave Chappelle is. And I think it's very interesting how he's sort of being used as a societal scapegoat now for a lot of these intersectional issues. And I said this a couple of years ago. The fact that anyone's acting surprised that he's making fun of the trans community along with everyone else is either does not know this man's body of work or is just lying to you.
However, as soon as he includes trans people into the mix, despite people belonging to that group not having a problem laughing at the former subjects on their own or everything else, he is painted as a villain in the media and claimed that he is targeting the specific people. The media thrives off dissension and division. You see, when the news articles misrepresent information, as in the case of Dave Chappelle's comedy special, it has this far-reaching and really detrimental effect.
But the media are just acting in their own best interest, right? Because they're just capitalist entities. They're just doing whatever is going to make them the most money. They're just doing whatever is going to drive their engagement. They're just doing whatever is going to get the most clicks. Okay? And that is the state of things. That's where we are now. Happy 2024.
We've seen how the media has the ability to influence societal attitudes.
The media are just acting in their own best interests. I think people like Jeffrey Marsh feel that they are acting in their own best interests. But this is, like weaponized narcissism. Like, the media is whipping people up into a frenzy because it's going to make them money. And these individuals are going along with this because it fuels their own egos. So what we have is a bunch of actors running around acting in what they feel is their own best interest. But acting in only your own best interest isolates you from everyone else and is actually, detrimental to everyone. And we're all part of everyone, aren't we?
So, preferential treatment in comedy, where some groups are considered off limits for humor, does in fact lead to division and a sense of exclusion. While it's essential for everyone to stand against genuine hate speech or discrimination, misinterpreting comedy as such can create an unproductive narrative.
Because laughter is a human coping mechanism that we all share, right? And comedy is supposed to be equal opportunity. It has to be. Because it fills a very basic function in our collective psyches and individually.
Continuous outrage over perceived slights could potentially alienate allies and neutral parties. If people feel that they're always walking on eggshells, they may retreat from engaging with the trans community out of fear of causing offense.
Now, for this segment, you could just take out the word trans and just talk about all community.
This will hinder the efforts towards inclusion and acceptance, as it damages dialogue and understanding. Also, focusing outrage on a comedy special may detract from more important issues faced by the trans community.
Focusing on a comedy special may take attention away from real issues faced by the community, by all people.
You know, like certain rights or mental health care stuff, pressing problems that urgently need attention and resources.
All of this stuff is a distraction from pressing issues and needs resources for everyone. Everyone is struggling right now. Everyone is a conspiracy theorist because the dominant cultural narrative no longer makes any real sense. So you have to figure this stuff out for yourself. Yeah, I feel like you could say all of this about every community, about all communities, about the community at large. We're all struggling, and we could all use a lot more, mental health resources and that kind of thing. This is not special to the trans community. Why are you focused on the trans community when all of this applies to everyone? It makes me feel like maybe even Alori here is a bit of a victim to the narrative herself. We all probably are, but it's frustrating because she's clearly very smart, and I love the critical thinking.
But when the spotlight is on a comedy special, it takes away from the focus on these critical issues. Chappelle's comedy special, like many others, can be seen as a platform for initiating conversations on various societal themes, including gender identity.
Trans jokes aren't funny. Let me tell you why.
Oh, they don't want that.
By dismissing it as just a blanket stroke offensive.
It's immoral.
Right. It's not just offensive. It is immoral to joke about trans people because you are killing them. Jeffrey. No. Words don't kill people, honey.
There's a missed opportunity for constructive dialogue about the trans community and the issues they face.
The more of us you make fun of, the more society finds us dismissible.
They do not want that. They don't want a constructive dialogue. They want no debate.
This continual outrage, especially when misdirected,
the more of us die.
Can potentially harm the trans community by fostering negative perceptions, alienating allies, and as I've said, distracting from more significant actual issues. It's like you're basically shutting down the conversation before it has a chance to be brought up.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. That is exactly what is happening here. That is exactly what is happening to so many conversations that need to happen all over the place. Because everyone is like this. The trans community could almost be viewed as like the canary in the coal mine here. All right? Because everybody's a little extra insecure right now in their lives.
It's really important to strike a balance between defending against genuine, actual harm and maintaining an open conversation to foster understanding and acceptance.
The many would-be mini dictators of the world are not interested in any of that because they are out for themselves. They are agents of chaos. All of us have the potential to develop into this because all of us are so incredibly insecure right now. People are more isolated now than ever, and the chaos just seems to keep rolling in, right? And it's affecting people's minds. So that a lot of these would-be dictators find fertile ground for their egocentric rabble-rousing, don't they?
For the instigator's plan to work, he must prey on someone who he knows will scrap regardless. Someone who's always ready for a fight, for the least little thing. Someone who's very sensitive and reactionary. A lot of very sensitive communities have this issue, and this is the reason why the news is able to use them in this manner.
I think all of us have this issue. All of us netizens, most people in modern Western society are on edge right now, aren't we? For various reasons, the culture war and whatever. I would say that pretty much everyone has the potential to be drawn in by something like this right now. And the misguided outrage hurts everybody, and Dave Chappelle has just become a scapegoat for this.
Humor and laughter have been proven to have physical benefits, including boosting the immune system and decreasing stress hormones. And without this outlet, people tend to struggle to manage stress effectively.
So censorship is always a tool of control, and it's always bad, and this is why.
And this leads to potential physical and mental health implications. Our ability to laugh at things and laugh at each other and with each other is an essential aspect of human society and mental health. And we've seen that the more people are sensitive about things regardless of the topic, is the more sensitive they become about those things and others.
Because of that.
Taking life way too seriously 100% of the time and taking everything too seriously isn't good for anyone's health.
Physically or mentally. So what you have is a bunch of isolated would-be dictators running around with increasingly ill mental health. Which sounds about right to me. These are dark times. But so censorship is always a tool of control, and it's always bad, either on a group level or on an individual level. And all of these would-be dictators running around are just agents of chaos. Okay, we're all working against each other, which is working against ourselves.
Comedy has historically been a powerful tool for social commentary, challenging societal norms, and fostering a community. And in the context of Dave Chappelle's stand-up comedy, a prevalent theme is the ability to make fun of everyone, irrespective of their racial, ethnic, or gender identity.
Which all of that sounds terrible for anybody with an authoritarian bent. Which I think are pretty much described in a lot of ways our entire society is set up to foster in all of us right now. So the idea that a lot of people are turning on Dave Chappelle and him, and then he's turning into a focal point for a lot of this rage makes a lot of sense.
There was a saying that people claimed was written by a neo-Nazi.
I love this in. It's a bit of an aside, but I think it's really interesting.
I can't confirm or deny this, and I'm pretty sure this is not the only person who has said this, but it's interesting that all the articles are running with this so that people can look back at this quote and think that using it must mean that they are too in agreement, anyone who says or quotes this, with everything that specific neo-Nazi allegedly said.
Guilt by association, right? She just doesn't want to accept this guilt by association of this thing that is so rational and logical to her. Which, you know, even a broken clock is right twice a day, right? Hitler loved dogs. Does that mean dog lovers are fascists? No, of course not. That's ridiculous.
If that is indeed who actually came up with this quote, which I highly doubt. The quote reads, "To learn who rules over you, simply find out who you are not allowed to criticize."
I've seen this attributed to Voltaire so long, I wonder if this neo-Nazi didn't think he was quoting Voltaire. And whether Voltaire said it or not, it's a solid point.
You'll notice that North Korea and the Chinese government don't allow people to criticize them.
Because that is narcissism writ large and enshrined in their laws so that those individual narcissists, at the very least, have the entire state behind them to enact their will. Which is terrifying. And what we have in the West is like the granularized version of that, where each individual person is a potential aspiring dictator. One of the best ways to prevent overdeveloped narcissism is being regularly exposed by things that you don't agree with or don't understand. Censorship is always bad. Censorship is always a tool of control, enacted either by governments or by individuals. Thank you, Alori, for connecting the micro and the macro so clearly. And I think that was what really inspired me to make this video. Because the behavior of dictators has been normalized. So we have individual narcissism on the societal level, and it's just this sea of chaos where everybody's out for number one. And you can't trust anybody, and everybody's a scammer, and everybody's out to get you. And if you feel that way, you're not wrong, and it's really sad. And, you know, somebody like Dave Chappelle can't even make jokes about it when that's literally his gig. And what are we doing? Thank you so much for joining me. I have been Rad Mom, just chiming in on the whole Dave Chappelle thing because, you know, gotta love the guy. And join me at the top of the hour for the live stream and discussion, and next Wednesday with a new video, and I'll see you then. Later, bye.